Hi, my name is Dr. John D. Camillo. I'm an ethicist at the National Catholic Bioethics Center. I research, teach, write, and field hundreds of ethics consultations each year, particularly from patients and families or Catholic healthcare professionals. Together, we can help medicine thrive. A big question that comes up when Catholic healthcare professionals encounter patients who are struggling with the pain of infertility is this: is it okay to use assisted reproductive technologies? They may know the basics of church teachings on marriage and sexuality, particularly the prohibition on contraception, but they're not sure what that means for responses to infertility. Let's take a look. First of all, we need to understand what we're talking about. According to the CDC, an assisted reproductive technology, or ART, is a treatment or procedure that includes the handling of human eggs or embryos to help a woman become pregnant. Notice that there's no reference to sperm. So by this definition, something like intrauterine insemination doesn't count as an ART. Likewise, hormonal therapies, cycle monitoring, ultrasound tracking of ovulation, medications to support pregnancy or stimulate ovulation, or even surgeries to correct defects of the reproductive system don't count as ARTs, even though these are certainly technological interventions that can help couples with conception and gestation. So here's the deal. If we only want to know about ARTs, then the short answer is no. It's not okay to use almost any ART. Why? The Church's teaching is that human embryos are to be treated with the dignity of a human person. The dignity gives them a right to be conceived, gestated, born, and raised within and through marriage, and to be the fruit of a specific act of conjugal intercourse between husband and wife. While many children are deprived of what's owed to them by deliberate acts of human injustice, such as sexual assault or parental abandonment, or by tragic circumstances like the death of a parent, every person has this right to come into the world as a gift that directly results from the specific act of self-giving love between husband and wife, the conjugal act. That child is a concrete manifestation of the bodily and spiritual union of husband and wife, love made flesh. In this framework, there is no place for technologies that aim to directly create and handle human embryos, especially when this involves persons or gametes outside of the marriage bond. Yet that's what nearly every ART involves. In vitro fertilization with embryo transfer, zygote intrafallopian transfer, tubal embryo transfer, embryo cryopreservation, gestational surrogacy, anything involving donor gametes, and so forth. The few ARTs that don't involve creating or handling embryos are those that instead handle the woman's eggs, such as tubal ovum transfer, or some methods of gamete intrafallopian transfer, also called gift. While these could be legitimate in theory, with a host of caveats that can't be addressed here, the practical reality is this. Over 99% of all ART cycles in the United States have been IVF since the CDC began producing national summary reports in 2005, and the fraction of a percent of the cycles involving any other techniques has been so insignificant that the CDC stopped reporting the breakdown of non-IVF methods as of 2017. So practically no ARTs, as defined by the CDC, can be morally sound. But there's more to this issue. What we really want to know is what kinds of medical interventions to help achieve pregnancy can be morally sound. In other words, which reproductive interventions do respect the dignity of the spouses and of the child in the manner of conception, even if they're not classified as ARTs. Thankfully, we have a clear framework for this. Simply put, reproductive medical interventions that assist the conjugal act are sound, while interventions that replace the conjugal act are immoral. They deprive the child of that right to be conceived through the one flesh loving union of husband and wife. So healthcare professionals can do anything that will make it more likely for conception to result from marital intercourse, which is genuine assistance to the couple's act of sexual union. But they should not do anything that would make conception occur apart from marital intercourse. In layman's terms, assisting sex is good, replacing sex is bad. Notice a point of irony here. The CDC definition of assisted reproductive technologies, ARTs, actually applies almost exclusively to those methods of achieving pregnancy which do not assist the conjugal act, but rather replace it. So we see again how most ARTs in practice don't fit the moral framework. They make babies without sex, so they actually don't assist the couple's procreative act. Why the huge disconnect between the meaning of assisting in ARTs and the Church's understanding of assisting with procreation? Answer: different understandings of the rights of marriage, the goals of intervention, the dignity of the child, and the dignity of the spouses. First point. The secular world sees a right to a child, which need not be linked to marriage, while the natural moral law and the Church see a spousal right to acts of marital intercourse. Children are gifts to be received when they spontaneously flow from the exercise of the marital right to sex, not a right to be claimed and then fulfilled by any means. Second point. ARTs have an explicit utilitarian goal, outlined in the CDC definition, to help a woman become pregnant. Baby production is the ultimate metric. ARTs don't aim to restore reproductive health, which enables spousal union to bear fruit. ARTs aim to produce a child. The natural moral law and the Catholic Church, on the other hand, have a different goal when it comes to procreation: to see and respect the spouses as individual persons, to restore the reproductive systems of husband and wife, and to help their acts of loving union bear fruit. Attention is placed on each spouse as a whole person and on the sexual dynamics between them as part of the successful treatment, so their own sexual acts, not the machinations of technicians, will directly bring about the conception of a child. Third point. The production goal of ARTs means the child is something to be created or obtained, an accessory or a product to be bought or sold in accordance with demand or manufactured as needed and desired. Human embryos lost, frozen, cryopreserved, discarded along the way don't matter as long as the final product is delivered and the customer is satisfied. The natural moral law and the Church consider all children gifts to be cherished, if and when they follow upon a conjugal act, never to be produced or commercialized in any way. Fourth point. The production goal of ARTs also means that spouses and their bodily health and their unique relationship to one another are irrelevant. Marriage is irrelevant. Sex is irrelevant. Restoring reproductive health is unnecessary so long as the result is achieved: a pregnant woman and a baby in hand. This denigrates the spouses. The man becomes a source of sperm, if he's lucky, because a sperm donor may be used, and then he's worthless. The woman becomes a source of eggs or a uterus or both, if she's lucky, because a gestational mother might be used, or an egg donor, or both, in which case she's worthless. Both spouses merely serve the end of baby production at the hands of third-party technicians. Now back to the principle for assessing any reproductive medical intervention. Assisting sex is good, replacing sex is bad. To throw in some more technical language, we could say that extracorporeal fertilization and heterologous fertilization are always immoral because they both replace the marital act as the cause of conception. In extracorporeal fertilization, technicians use gametes to make conception happen outside the body, so the married couple's one-flesh union is clearly not the cause of conception. In practice, that covers nearly all ARTs, as we said before, which is almost exclusively in vitro fertilization. In heterologous fertilization, at least one of the two gametes comes from a person outside the marriage covenant, a sperm or egg donor. Any conception of this sort is extramarital by definition. It's not, even if it's not extracorporeal. So all forms of insemination by donor, for example, cannot be morally sound. Now what about intracorporeal and homologous insemination? This would mean that conception arises from the gametes of the spouses in the womb of the wife. So the two biggest pitfalls are avoided. It's not extracorporeal and it's not heterologous. There are some ongoing moral debates here in this area, but the foundational principle stated earlier remains the guide. A child must be conceived as the fruit of a specific act of intercourse between husband and wife. This makes it difficult to argue, for example, for the acceptability of homologous intrauterine insemination, which involves some significant disconnects between the act of intercourse and the conception of the child, including the collection and sometimes centrifuging of semen and the delivery of that semen via plunger in a clinic. At-home conception kits used by husband and wife appear much more promising, but they can involve very challenging moral questions about whether conception is the fruit of sexual intercourse, or rather of some separate and distinct act of the married couple which depends upon intercourse. Another issue with any homologous insemination method will be precisely how the semen is collected. In fact, when it comes to obtaining semen for testing or for any proposed homologous insemination, masturbation is never legitimate. The only way it might be obtained is from a conjugal act using a perforated collection device, similar to a condom. This will enable a deposit of at least some semen in the vagina, which is needed for a proper marital act open to life. Alternatively, a postcoital collection of semen from the cervical area could work. In fertility testing, this is known as the Hooner method. As we've seen, ARTs and the broader range of reproductive technologies like insemination are either outright immoral or they leave us with a host of complex questions. In their relentless pursuit of pregnancy, these approaches tend to either completely replace the conjugal act or split the hairs of what might technically be considered assisting the conjugal act. But the goal is baby in hand, whatever the means, and the danger of objectifying children and depersonalizing the spouses is always serious. But behind every no is a great yes to the dignity of the human person and the glorious unity of truth. The Church doesn't prohibit ARTs because they're artificial in a technological sense, but rather because she insists that true medicine serves the health of the whole human person, body, mind, and spirit, and respects the human dignity of each patient. Restorative reproductive medicine is just this sort of sound approach that relies on science and technology to offer what ARTs fail to deliver: person-centered flourishing of the reproductive health of each spouse with medical assistance to maximize the likelihood of receiving that most beautiful fruit of the marital act, a child. But that deserves its own treatment in another video. Thank you for watching. Please be sure to like, subscribe, and comment with any questions you have.